is history, the future mystery. This moment is the gift. Every
Starting with this moment is the gift. We truly, truly love coming to you every week. I am Dr. Sarah Larsen. You're listening to The Miracle Makers. I'm here with my rock star husband, Greg Larsen.
Rock star times 2 some days.
And today is one of those days that we are having this experience, rock stars in the house. Today we are very carefully, joyfully crafting a conversation live on air for you on how to overcome fear. And we've invited a dear change maker. He is a social entrepreneur. I am so inspired to have him in studio with us, and I can't wait for him to come into the conversation as much as possible. Please welcome Frank Fitzpatrick in studio.
Woohoo! Welcome.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here. Thank you. Feel very blessed.
It's every week we bring the best we know into studio with us, the oldest studio in Hollywood. We're on sacred ground as far as I'm concerned. This has been around. And some of the greatest movies have been made here, some of the greatest footage, as well as things like Scandal and Heroes. And so to have you in studio with us is really, really great. And I'm just so grateful for how you see humanity and all the changes that you yourself have been through over the years on overcoming fear and creating storytelling at its finest, movies, songs, coming forward to help humanity change. Recently, I saw one of the videos that you made on ending slavery. And we're going to dive in to all of that on how to overcome fear, this personal self-development, and all the programs that you're working on. Dear Miracle Makers, we're in for a treat. How and why, Frank, are you doing this work of ending slavery and helping others overcome fear? It's a big question.
Yeah, no. Well, I'm doing it because I'm called, and it's happening through me. So I'm grateful for that. The end slavery piece is a beautiful culmination of a long story that I'll get into. But first, I'll tell a little bit about, I guess, what it is, because people don't necessarily know. So I did a collaboration for a video and did the music and produced the video for a very special purpose to help the Dalai Lama and Pope Francis and Desmond Tutu formed a delegate of 25 of the world's spiritual leaders to sign a declaration to end human trafficking and modern slavery in the world by 2020. And my collaborator, Lisa Christine, is one of the most amazing humanitarian photographers I know. I've ever seen her work. She has the absolute ability to capture the divinity, the soul of anybody she shoots, and make you want to welcome them into your arms and into your home, regardless of what culture or what place they're from in their life.
It's a beautiful video.
Yeah, so beautiful,
that you've produced. The music is incredible. The photography is beautiful. And it really tells a touching story with each of the workers, each person carrying bricks, carrying the burden of humanity on their backs, and yet their eyes so full of spirit and so full. I highly recommend everyone go and watch this video and we'll probably show some of the images and pictures here.
Okay.
Go ahead and keep.
So in terms of overcoming fears, when you take anybody, but when you take leaders of the world who are trying to make political decisions, they're usually operating from a kind of a fear and humanistically removed space. So they're not unable. That's unfair. I don't mean to be in judgment, but they're their nature of strategic repair and trying to fix things is not open, does not always allow them to see solutions that are really humanistic and connect to their soul, and for them to see from a broader space. So what the purpose of this video basically is to, and a lot of my work in that space is to help each individual to recognize the divinity and the loving and resemblance of each of the human being. And so when in 3 minutes, by doing the work with the prayer and the music behind it, and that really affects the subconscious and opens the heart without them even knowing it's happening. That's part of the magic of the work, and is they start to recognize each of these individuals as human beings who they would love and welcome into their home, as opposed to statistics of 40 million slaves or a problem in the world. And out of that, when they enter a dialogue into solutions that come new heart-based, open-minded, open heart, new innovative ideas and how to embrace, solutions.
It's so beautiful. You got together with world leaders, and and you have, so Desmond Tutu, the Pope Francis. I just want to bring it back a little bit because I don't want that part of the story to be missed. You got together and you wanted to create a piece that would open up and offer tools for anyone watching to be able to be a little less afraid and even welcoming of those that they might have feared in the past.
Right.
So you met with these great leaders, and I love that. Our leadership, the humanitarian leadership that's showing up today, really has the full scope of what's possible if each person becomes a little less afraid and a little more welcoming of their next door neighbor or of a culture that doesn't necessarily look like their own. And so this piece that you've designed with these great leaders, with this great music, with these great pictures, is a technology that we've known about for a long time. Carl Jung talks about the power of storytelling. We know also that music transforms at such a deep level. And we also know that we're on our own personal journeys. The lens, our eyes, the way that we see the world is the only place that we actually have power to transform. And so you made this piece with different and beautiful people, beautiful photography, beautiful music, amazing chants. And when you watch it and when you share it, something magical happens. And so that's a little bit about what you do, the social making change through making beautiful art. And how did you get into storytelling?
Well, I'll tell you a fun story that around that video, but we can come back to that. But I got into storytelling. I grew up in Detroit. I was around 11, 12 years old. The city collapsed, and a lot of people know the story of Detroit, but it had an economic collapse. It was very severe, and so I spent a lot of time on the streets and in a lot of trouble, and music was kind of my lifeline or my salvation. It was my refuge from a world I didn't understand and didn't always want to be part of, and I knew pretty early on that I wanted to share that with and have all kids in the world have access to that tool because it's so powerful. And so I pursued that, and I came to Hollywood to be a record producer and blah blah blah. And it was and then I learned about storytelling, filmmaking from the heyday of Francis Ford Coppola and Brian De Palma, and I saw the power of what you can do with the combination of storytelling and music together. And I realized that was my work, if I really wanted to have the impact I wanted to have. And I'm also a yogi, so as you say, there's ancient teachings. We know that these combinations of storytelling and sound and music and images are the most powerful way to transform the human spirit and to help us. They're what I call the technologies of emotion, as everybody's talking about technology
Yes.
today. So, so I've been blessed to be schooled and learned and practiced in that for the last 30-something years, and now I'm blessed to be able to try to use it and share it in ways that I have some impact on the world.
That's so lovely. And I know you brought up such an important piece, that you were in pain. The city was crumbling around you. And for so much of our planet Earth right now, kids, young adults, everyone can be surrounded in a great deal of their world crumbling around them, the infrastructures that supported them at one time. And you used music as a way, you used creativity as a way to awaken something greater than yourself, a tool to help you navigate the world, being on the streets in Detroit, being in fearful conflict a lot. Music became the bridge. And baby, I know when you went through your divorce, your first marriage, and all of a sudden your world was crumbling, you yourself found Nashville. And I'd love for you to just share a little bit for the miracle makers listening, what comes up for you and what happened for you.
Well, I just think it's so important to stay connected in the heart. A lot of time when there's those situations, we go right to our minds. We're trying to figure out how to survive or how to eat or how to find shelter. So it's a very, mind-driven problem-solving challenge. But ultimately, it's through staying connected to the heart that not only do those transitions become easier to navigate, but there's, a greater quality of life, if you want to call it that, or just, because love is the answer. And so if you can stay connected to your heart. And of course, when I went to Nashville to be a musician, even though I was in the pain of being through a divorce, it's music that allowed me to stay connected to, a deeper space and to heal. Because it's if you can stay, in a negative story in your head for the rest of your life and die miserable and grumpy, if you want to call it that, or you can, through music or through any means, through spirituality, stay connected to your heart. And sure enough, this too shall pass, and new doors open through being connected to my heart. And now I have just a life that's so full of love and so full of magic and miracles. And so that is the tool right there. That's the main tool, is the heart. So how do you stay connected to your heart?
Right.
Is the question. Obviously through art, through music, through telling stories, powerful stories. When I watched the video, I was like you're saying, those images, you can look into these people's eyes, and you can tell they're like,
Each one has a story, right?
Each one has a story,
Right.
and they're not in the place they want to be in, and they're like, literally, it's like, see my soul. This is, I can do greater than this,
Right.
and so, but they're trapped in those places, and I'm, as a father of an 11-year-old and 9-year-old, it's like, well, wow, I want my kids to know how lucky they are that they are in this situation, and what can we do together in this place of privilege and abundance to help. And I'm so glad that the religious leaders, are taking a stance and having that eradicated by 2020. That would be phenomenal.
Yes.
By 2020
Yeah.
means each one of us stepping in and connecting with our hearts, connecting with each other and with the change makers, and also being able to share our own stories. I know you just put together a pilot program for 11 and 12-year-olds. Frank, you put together this. So I'd love for you just to talk a little bit about that, and maybe one or two of the tools that you were able to share, because no matter what age we are, we've still got the 11 and 12-year-old within us that can utilize this energy, these tools that you've been developing, this program.
And even more than that, we're operating from the story that we developed in that age.
Yes.
So if we can, I see if we want to build leaders of the next generation, if we can give them the tools to, be more imbalanced in the midst of chaos, and to be more self-regulated and inspired, and more connected and build stronger relationships. That at that age, then they were not trying to correct it so bad later in life, right? But and so, I was doing work all over the world and social work all over the world and impact projects, and I saw the music being completely stripped from every place that it was important for kids, underprivileged kids, public schools, health care, and so I've been on this mission for a couple of years doing this campaign called Why Music to help people better understand how important and powerful those tools are, and not just music, but as a standalone, as an entertainment, but as a modality that we have available to us to shift our consciousness, our health, our mind, our story at any moment, to help us do all kinds of great things. So I developed this pilot program and curriculum and did a pilot program for 11 and 12-year-olds, in part going back to the story I told you when I was 12 in Detroit. I really kind of knew I had that process in me, that fear that was developed then, and that how I overcame it. But it was still very, present. It's still an operating system. So I was helping the kids. I was helping myself in the process. And I developed what we call a social and emotional learning program, which is helping kids to learn social and emotional and relationship skills and life tools. And it was through music, so they were very intrigued, and storytelling were the two key aspects of it. It also included all kinds of super learning and other modalities like yoga, meditation, movement, but it was ultimately through that which was allowed them to connect in ways that they would otherwise be way too fearful to express themselves, or feel way too vulnerable without that womb, so to say, that embryonic fluid of the music, yes, without having story to express the way they were feeling, as opposed to just trying to convey their feelings. They're such cathartic mediums, and they provide such a safe haven for moving through fear and for building.
It's such a beautiful thing, because music, studies show now that when we're making music, amazing parts of our brain light up. It's
yes,
like fireworks are happening.
Yes.
When we're listening to music as well, there are fireworks, connections, synapses. Our thoughts move faster and are more fluid. When we're participating, even the deaf, when they're able to feel the vibration of it, something amazing happens there as well in their brain activity. We process and release, letting go of the stress hormones. When we're in fear, we have stress hormones that are interacting, making it some of the things less visible that are around us.
Right.
We hear shocking noises rather than the true sounds. When fear is in play, our organs aren't even receiving blood flow,
Sure.
whereas our fight and flight. So most of us today, whatever age we're in, if we're watching news and if we're watching reading regular newspapers, are flooding ourselves with hormones that cause us to be in this fight, flight, or freeze response.
Right.
And when we actively begin bringing in music and bringing in stories that relax that fight, or flight within us, we then are truly able to see ourselves. We're truly able to see another. We're truly able to experience a little bit more of what's happening. The Heart Math Institute found
Sure.
that when we're in fear or when we're in a frequency, our energy's less chaotic and less of our brain has blood flowing to it. And when we're in a resonant with harmonious music, when we're in a resonant frequency or breathing into our hearts, more of our brain becomes available thinking-wise, solution-wise, activity-wise. And so the stories that we're watching, the stories that we're listening to in song over and over again are creating. And I'd love for you to share some of the things that you've seen with your work.
Yeah, I just wanted, before I go into that, I just wanted to also say, just in the, it's not only shifting our mind, it's actually shifting the DNA, the cells of our body. So it's between the breathing and the movement are very key. So movement, dance, and movement, and fluid movement, and breathing accompanied with music, and just a letting go allows us a really great way to let go of the fear. And it not only gives us higher intellect capacity, but it gives us much more access to our intuition and to any higher intelligence that's present in our body, which is really where a lot of most people get disconnected,
I would love to know what is one of your practices that we could do in studio right now? A breathing technique or a mantra, something that you do for yourself. I know as we expand and we build our muscle to have courage and speak to others and create, we have, as we expand that muscle, early on, what is one of the techniques that you share?
Well, I can share a really simple breathing technique, and I give a little framework why. So, I mean, most of us, we live in a very fragmented life, and so we get grounding is key. So anytime we have a chance and we can take a few moments and ground, everything else works better. So if you think of our body as an energy or electrical system, which is what energy is, moving around, and it's not grounded, well then just think of what's actually going on. So it's like shorting out, basically. So you probably talked on this show a little bit about the chakra work and breathing and working with the chakras a little bit. I look at them in a very sort of a harmonic way. So there's a breath that I do that's based on kind of a root fundamental harmony, like we would in music. And it's really to first breathe, and so we bring our body into grounding, which then brings our mind into more grounding. And it works through, it's breathing into the belly, which is our center for our intuition and our courage and our ability to take on things in the world, sort of digest the world, if you may. And then it's metaphorically moving energy through our root chakra. So that's our connection to our loving foundation of the Mother Earth, to know that we're always held and that we can root down like the roots of a tree and have true integrity and steadfast there, that we're always held regardless. So when we get to remembering that, and then it's also metaphorically breathing out through the throat chakra, which is this fish chakra, which is where we have our inspiration, our breathing, where we have our self-expression, where we all lock up in our jaws and our necks. So it allows us to loosen that up so we can then receive and express. So, and these are all connected from what we call, because they're all part of the food channel. So it's our main source of prana, is what we take in as food. So this is a really important channel. So, and it's a very simple, I just, without anybody having to know about all what I said, but I just know that there's some of your listeners who probably enjoy the knowledge behind it. So if we just relax and sit up tall, and we take deep breath into our belly, through our nose, in and out through our nose, our mouth closed. And then when we exhale, we pull the navel in towards the spine, and we metaphorically think of the prana, the energy, the breath moving down through our root into the earth, in your seat if you're seated, and out through the throat and jaw area, and feel that relax on the exhale. And then just take a deep breath into the belly, slow, through the nose. You can hold a little bit if you need, and then exhale slower, even slower through the nose, and feel the energy go metaphorically as you root down deeper to the earth, and let the jaw relax and all the space behind the jaw and the space behind the eyes. And continue that. You can do it to a count if you want to breathe into the count of 4. Hold for a moment, and then exhale to the count of 5. and
That's
continue. Yeah.
so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And what a gift to be able, you can do this at dinner.
Anywhere.
You can do
Yeah.
this anywhere.
Anywhere.
And it roots to the ground. And I did move in and start speaking again because I'd love for each person that's listening to be able to really connect with the rainbow that's in their body. The
Right.
chakra system is an ancient form, Chinese and the Hindus beautifully, the Vedas make reflection to these energy
Colors, yeah.
centers in your body. And as you're breathing and as you're doing this, if you think of the rainbow inside your body, the red is right at your seat, the orange right between your belly and your belly button, the yellow coming up a little bit higher around your belly button. Then you've got the green with your heart center, the blue coming into your throat, coming up to your eyes, a richer, and the third eye coming up to a deeper indigo blue and out through the top, this rainbow violet color coming through us as you're breathing and as we've been breathing on air, to really breathe in those colors as well. And I'd love for us to continue breathing. I cut you off right at the
That's
throat because I really wanted the visual
Right.
to go with this as well for those that are listening
Right.
and not seeing it. The biggest thing, and Einstein said, our imagination is more important than all knowledge. And I know we love these quotes and these energies of the wise ones coming through the words. We're sharing the same air that Einstein shared. We're sharing the same air as the Dalai Lama. We're sharing that same energy and frequency. And so I'd love for you to continue from there where we are, just a little bit more breathing. I wanted to bring the visuals in and let our imagination build stories as we're breathing.
So do you want to continue that same breath, or do you want to try another one?
Let's try one more.
Okay, so that's a grounding breath. And since you just took everybody through the 7 chakras and we advanced a little bit.
Yes.
So there's also an activating breath, which is, I look at I don't look at the chakras as linear. I look at them as harmonically structured. So, because they're based on vibrations, vibrational fields. So if you want to ground, that's a really great way to ground, and it's very important to ground, and you can do it anywhere, and you can do it with sound, and you can do it with images, and you don't have to imagine all the chakras if it's too complex for you. You can just imagine the beauty of a rainbow or a beautiful sunset, and you can listen to a piece of music or a tone, and that may help you to also ground. But if you want to really work with sound, the chakras, and breathing, and work specifically on activation, then what we do is an active harmonic process would be to move up to an active chord. So that's moving up to the next set of chakras, and that would be the second chakra, which is, as you said, below, above the sacrum and below the navel, and the fourth chakra, which is the heart chakra, and then the sixth chakra, which is called the third eye. So that would be an active harmony. And what's really beautiful about the combination of those 3 chakras, as opposed to grounding us to the earth, is that they activate us to spirit. And you'll be able to tell the difference when we breathe through them. And they're also considered, in ancient traditions, the 3 altars of the temple of the body.
And what's really beautiful is we have nerve bundles. As a
Yes.
doctor, as a scientist, we have nerve bundles that correspond with each of the chakras.
Right.
So these are energy centers, and nerve bundles meaning centers of intelligence within your
Right.
body that create
Sure.
and sense what's happening around you.
Right. Yes, and this is to activate creativity and co-creation and connection to your divine source, and to the source of the universe is one, and to your heart and love, which is the sort of the holder for all of it. So we're going to breathe into the heart chakra, which is into the heart center. And then this time, we're going to breathe in the same process and take a deep breath into the chest through the nose. And when we exhale, we're going to metaphorically let that exhale go to our second chakra, to our sacral area, and also out through our third eye, and to open and let that energy open up. So each inhale, we go into the heart center, and each exhale, we exhale metaphorically through the sacral area and through the third eye. And you'll feel a lightness after a bit. So we'll do just 3 or 4 breaths. Again, you can do a 4 count in if you want, and try to make your exhale a little bit longer, maybe a 5 count out. Hold for a moment if you want. So we'll just start, let the air out, take a deep exhale, sigh, and then take an inhale in through the nose, still in and out through the nose, into the heart center. Let the chest expand. Hold for a moment, and then slowly exhale as slow as possible through the nose, and metaphorically feel the air, the prana, the air going out through the center between the brows and through the sacral area. Clear those areas. And breathe in again into the heart center. Hold for a moment. And slowly exhale through the nose as slow as possible, and again feel those areas open up, the tension remove between the brows, the sacrum open up a little bit. Another deep breath into the heart. And then the exhale, same, open up. Feel the forehead relax, the space behind the eyes relax, the area around the sacrum and hips and lower abdomen relax. And open your eyes. So you should feel a little lighter, maybe.
We do. I do. I feel so much lighter. And what's really beautiful is you can do this anywhere.
Anywhere.
No matter what's going on around you. That activation breath is, this activation is so important. One of the things that, as you were sharing, I remembered the rainbow of emotions. You know, we have all of these emotions, and a lot of times people are okay with the emotion of being happy or comfortable sharing when they're in that space. But if they get angry or if they get sad, they tend to hide away, or they're even afraid of their expressing their own anger. And one of the things that I think it's important for all of us to realize is having any fear involving not fully being expressed is like trying to tell the rainbow only the yellow, orange, and red are pretty. Don't have the blue and green. All
Right.
of our emotions, every emotion, that listener, that you're having, anything that you feel and anything that you'd like to feel, embrace it all and allow yourself to feel it as you're doing these breaths. As you're becoming more courageous, you're going to walk in this path of trying new things out. And as you're trying these new things out, sometimes if you're more concerned about the outcome or how you might react versus how you actually did respond, you might suppress yourself in the future. Every emotion, every thought, everything that you're feeling, just like the rainbow, can be expressed and can be brought forward, lovingly accepted by you, and turned into a beautiful energy that gives to yourself and gives to others. And an example of that is if you've had a painful time in your life, and in the past when you'd go around and you'd share all of your painful stories with others, and someone said, you know, when you share those painful stories, it's not helpful. You're kind of dumping on others. If that's something that's shown up for you and you stopped sharing your painful stories, you've kind of closed off an aspect of yourself. How do you know when to share stories again? How to share these? You share stories about yourself when you feel they will help and contribute to another, or when you're feeling an emotion and you don't want to be feeling it. So my husband says something and I'm like, oh my gosh, anger might come up here. If I tell him and I pull back the veil, metaphorically speaking, on what I'm thinking, and I say, baby, what you just shared with me, it causes me to feel this emotion. And I'm afraid that if I talk right now or share with you, I might express it in a way that's angry. And he's like, what would you say to that?
It's, being able to navigate. Well, the whole thing comes down to, for me, because we have these situations arise.
Yeah. Yes.
And so it's, in the past, I think, before I matured, I would have, without thinking about the full dynamic, just responded from a very small place, which is lashing out and, you're wrong, I'm right, whatever those, a very immature, I guess I would call it. But it's, as I've learned tools myself and learned to interpret what's happening more clearly, I try to, as best possible, respond instead of react. Because reacting is always just it's very rarely that it turns constructive or it turns, it shapes the outcome in a positive way. Whereas responding, which might not mean speaking at all, even though you might be saying something that I think is not true or is hurtful, I'd rather not say anything until I can respond in a very conscious way. So the result is more love, or the result is less pain.
So the context, thank you so much for sharing that. What I'm bringing forward is full human expression and ways in which children, ways in which adults can truly express what's going on behind the information or the energy that's themselves. Meaning, until I share, no one else knows what's going on with me. Until I tell you a story or until I respond actively, you're only left to interpret things based on your own frame of reference. And so, Frank, I'd love for you to share how we can comfortably share our emotions. And if someone's responding or reacting or telling us things, how to ground in, how to actively hold space for, and co-create a peace, loving, not fear-based experience.
Right. Well, there's an organization that comes to mind. They're called it's an emotional intelligence organization called 6 Seconds, because that's the amount of time it takes for you before you need to wait to not be in a fully reactive state.
So 6 seconds. That's awesome.
So if at least according to their statistics.
Yeah.
So the idea is that a breath.
Yes.
Deep
conscious breath
and a reconnection to yourself, to be able to be fully present and not stuck in a reactive head. To be fully present to the other person is the only loving space from which you can be received. And I say we can only speak into the space of the listening. So we have to help create the listening.
So I want to make sure we get that. It's so important to understand you can't change someone else. You can only be a space for change to happen within yourself. And the way that space to allow change is you yourself become the listening space of the story, of the vibration, of what's trying to be transmitted. When you become the listening space, and it only takes one person to become that listening space, through the eyes, through the heart, through the energy field, so much can happen. So thank you. Continue to share. I just didn't want that listening space to get lost.
No, that's okay. It's I think that self-expression, storytelling, and story can get a little confused in their context. So because what we tend to do is when uncomfortable emotions come up, we make up reasons to stay away from them and to look beneath them, because beneath those uncomfortable emotions is where the deep joy and the deep bliss is.
Yes.
So if we can't find a way to open up to them and open up in them, then we always keep shutting that joy, that deep, deep, deep resonant bliss down, So so we sometimes create stories, that create fear. So we find a fear, we create a story that justifies the fear, and so that we can hold space in that fear, and then it shuts down, puts us back into a fight and flight resistant mode, and we can no longer be in a deep listening, So it's important that we're observing the stories that we're sharing as adults. As children, it's harder to do this. We want to teach them just to express,
Yeah.
so they don't shut down. But as adults, we have to be conscious about what we express, which takes a little bit of self-observation, observing mind, of wisdom mind, kind of watching how we're coming forth and making sure that recognizing when we're not in our heart and when we're coming from our mind, and we have the capacity to do that. And when we are not admitting it, if it's in a relationship to our partner, that what I may be saying or I'm saying, I recognize that I own it. It might be something come out of my mind. It's not about you. I don't want to create. I may be in a state of fear that I'm not recognizing. It's for us to recognize actually what we're in a little bit and to work with our partners through that. I think it's really valuable, to create that kind of listening space, and not to think that any story is is helpful.
It's I think back to the time that we see on ancient temples and ancient books, and at some point it was the first time everything had been done. Like it was the first love story was the first love story, the first child, that all of those stories. We have the capacity, we have the opportunity every day to experience the first of something in our lives. If we do the same things over and over again, we don't expand into a great realm of possibility that we're missing out on. Some scientists say that we have 90,000 thoughts a day, and roughly over 98% of them are the same thoughts over and over again.
Right.
And it's an amazing thing, because at some point you're telling yourself a story about yourself over and over and over again. And those stories are creating neuronal connections. And what would your life be like if you were constantly putting yourself in a place of, I wonder what I'm going to create here.
Right.
I wonder what's possible here. And you cultivated a space. When we say not from your mind, but from your heart, what that energy of the mind does is an energy of separating you from the things around you, whereas the heart becomes a place that you are connected to all things. And I think that's what's beautiful about the work that you're doing as well, the music and the stories, and teaching others how to create stories, music, harmony out in the world based on what already exists. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that. I know we're segueing because we're working through a lot of things here. Fear is a big topic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Fear is amazing because the second we even bring up the word fear, it takes us out of possibility.
Right.
And separates us and has a, what is it like when we embrace fear?
Right.
And take that fear and create art with it and create music.
So a couple of things. It's, creativity and learning to create is and as you say, opening up to retelling stories, your own story in different ways and from the heart and not repeating this is where miracles are created. You talk about so, and creativity is really the creative process done in integrity is really parallel to the spiritual enlightenment process. So it's amazing the miracles that you can create by trusting and entering to the space of the unknown and knowing that there's something deeper there waiting for you when you let go of the things, the stories you've been telling and what you already know. And it's out of that space, that circle of potentiality, the circle of possibilities, the deeper you go into the unknown, the closer you go to your true soul, because you get farther away from those fixed thoughts and minds and patterns you've been stuck in and how society defines you. So the creative process is a beautiful way to not only express and kind of clear the tensions, the anxieties, the frustrations, the angers, whatever you're having to cope with, that's present for you now, but once you clear those to take you to a much deeper place, and whether it's through music or writing or art or dance or other ways, that whatever you own and resonates best for you is just it's really moving into the space of the unknown and allowing the magic and miracles to come forth. And to me, it's like that view of, why can't we wake up, like you were saying, every day and look at everything in this mind of awe and wonder of a child, and even when I like to, there's people say, I can't believe how much violence there is on the planet, and I go, there's 7 billion people. It's amazing we get along at all. We all see the world completely differently. Yeah. And so to me, even when somebody has a different opinion or a different point of view that I don't agree with, I like to look at it through the lens of fascination.
Beautiful.
As opposed to the lens of judgment and objection. So it's I read this morning, just arbitrarily, and by not arbitrarily, nothing's arbitrary, but and I, a quote by Einstein, I'm going to get it wrong, but he said, some people never see miracles, and I see everything as miracles, which I thought was great because I came on the show today. And so I think that if we just open our eyes and get kind of out of the repeated story that we're telling and let go of that we can create anything by creating a new story. And that if we look at everything around us as a miracle. I mean, we got how many 30 trillion cells in our bodies? They're all miracles. They all have intelligence. They're all doing fascinating, phenomenal things at every given moment of our lives that we pay no attention to. Yeah, exactly. And the trees around, everything is a miracle. I mean, it's a miracle that we're here talking. It's a miracle that we made it onto this earth. It's a miracle that we were the chosen egg and sperm to get through the process. Everything is a miracle. And every second we breathe, and the fact that we breathe air and it keeps us alive, it's all a miracle. And when we start to look at life with that awe and fascination, and then create the stories from that. Somebody said to me, it's like Robert Holden said, imagine there's no past and you only have what you're seeing now and moving forward into whatever you want to create,
That's so beautiful. And we are running so gratefully in this course of what's next. What's next that we can create in this moment. If you take in the breath and you take what you just shared there, Frank, what's the best way to use this air, to use this moment to move forward.
Right.
And I would love for our audience to be able to stay connected with you. Mm-hmm. And so if you could share how we can stay in touch with you.
So I have the nonprofit organization, the website called Earth Tones, one word, earthtones.org. And then people can reach me there and see some of the work we talked about, as well as my own site where I work with people called Frank Fitzpatrick, my name, .com. So that should be somewhat memorable. And I'm really grateful to have shared this time with you today and with the audience and with everybody out there. And I feel it's a real blessed,
It is such a blessing. Thank you for being on air with us and for the brilliant work that you're doing with our great leaders. And I see this. This is a time of peace. We're in that framework, and this peace is possible. It's happening. And it's happening because you're listening to miracle makers. It's happening because we have Frank Fitzpatrick. It's happening, baby. I'd love for you to share a closing word or two.
Just the word that kept popping up throughout the space was, how do you overcome fear? And it's truly surrender. You just have to surrender to the unknown. You have to surrender to what those crazy thoughts are that you think might happen.
Yes.
As the ego's trying to dictate or control. You just have to surrender and take a step.
Beautiful.
That's when miracles blossom before you.
And miracle makers, we leave you with, oh my gosh, take this moment and see it for all that's possible in it. And take that as something to stand on. What's possible in this moment? What can I co-create? Can I co-create a miracle for another? Can I create a miracle for myself by expanding and sharing a story, a heartbeat, a deep listening for another? And so, thank you, miracle makers.
Thank you, miracle makers.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Jarvis. And we will see you all next week. Please share this podcast. Please rate us. We love it when you do that. Please let us know who you'd love to see next. Thank you so much.
Thank you, miracle makers.
The past is history, the future mystery. This moment is the